Hey YouTube, in this video I'm going to be showing you how to get really smooth skin using frequency separation in Photoshop. So just so you have an idea of what we'll be doing here in Photoshop, I'm going to create a new layer, and there's really two things we're going to be focusing on. There's the textures, right? We're going to get rid of some of these blemishes here, so a little bit here, and these are just going to be blemishes that don't necessarily occur naturally in the skin. And we're going to be getting rid of those. Secondly, we're going to be getting rid of the color inconsistency. So we're going to smooth out the colors to give the skin just a really, really soft, nice look whilst still retaining the texture. So we're going to get these colors to blend in really nicely here and here. So the first thing we're going to want to do, and I'm a big proponent of not doing extra work, right? So I'm going to show you how to create a new action and follow these steps. So first thing you're going to want to do is click this menu button here for actions. And if actions isn't turned on, go to window and just click on actions here to make sure it's checked. But select actions, and then you're going to click this menu button here, and we're going to do a new action so you can create your own action. Name it whatever you like. I'm going to type frequency separation, and then I'm going to click record. And so this is going to record every step I take, and so that next time you have to do frequency separation, you can do it relatively quickly. First thing we're going to do here for the background, we need 2 copies. I can hit Control J or Command J on a Mac. You can hit it again. You can also grab that background layer and just pull it over to the new layer to create a background if you needed to. I'm going to rename layer 1 into colors by double tapping there. I'm going to double click here, and we're going to do textures. Now that we have our 2 layers, I'm going to work on the colors layer first. So I'm going to click on colors, and we're going to add a blur. So let's click on filter at the top here. We're going to go to blur, and we're going to go to Gaussian blur. Once we have that, I'm going to bring the radius all the way down. And then as you can see, the cursor is now a square that corresponds with this square. If you click somewhere on the picture, you'll see a zoomed in version of this. You can get an idea of where that texture actually lies. So I'm going to turn my radius up, and it's going to be different depending pretty much for everyone, because the amount of pixels that you have is going to determine how much texture is actually there. So you want to get to a point where you still can see the textures here, but then the blemishes are blurred away, and it looks like we're about there. So I'm going to leave it, for me, about 4.2. Then I'm going to click OK. Now that we've got that done, we need the textures layer. So let's turn this layer on. We're going to select the textures layer. Then we're going to come up to image, and we're going to click apply image. Now for source, we want to leave it the same, and it should be the same source of the photo you're working on. If you're working on multiple, make sure it's this photo and it corresponds there. We're going to change the layers to colors and leave the channel as RGB. You want to make sure we change the blending mode to subtract, because we're going to subtract this from the colors layer. So select subtract, and then opacity is at 100. Make sure these stay unchecked. Change your scale to 2, and offset should be 128. After that's done, we're going to click OK. Last step for this is we're going to come down here with textures selected, click this drop down button, and we're going to change it to linear light. Now we're going to group these. I'm going to select textures. I'm going to hold Control and click this, or Command on a Mac and click on that, so I have both of these selected. And I'm going to hit Control G or Command G on a Mac in order to create that group. I'm going to double tap in here, and I'm going to name this frequency separation. Now once that's done, I'm going to open this group as my last step, and then I'm going to end the recording on this action. So that now, whenever I want to do frequency separation, and I'll show you, I'm going to delete this out. If I wanted to do frequency separation, I'm going to click on that action that I just did, click play, and as you can see, all those steps are there, including that background copy that I put in there. which we can go into the action later and remove that. But as you can see, those steps are done automatically. And so you don't have to worry about doing it more than once. Now let's go the cleanup route. So we're gonna go into textures. We're going to pull out our clone stamp tool, opacity at 100%, flow at 100%. For the brush, I'm gonna hold Alt, right click. You can change the side by going right and left. Up and down changes the hardness. So I'm gonna use a soft brush here. And obviously I can change the size as I go. But then I'm gonna start working on some of these blemishes. So hold Alt, I'm gonna use my wheel to zoom in, and I'm gonna hold Alt and click here to sample. And that sample is going to select the area that I sampled and run it over where my cursor is. So I'm gonna clean up. For this area, I still want this texture, so I'm gonna select here, and then I'm gonna apply that here. And then I'm just gonna keep doing that, right? I'm gonna pull sample from one place, put it into the next place in order to get some of that cleanness there. Now, as you can see, the color here is still wrong, and we're gonna fix that in the next step. But for now, we're just focusing on the textures, right? So I'm gonna sample there, clean up there, sample there, clean some of that up. Sample there, I'm gonna sample here, and just work it through. And then every now and then I like to zoom out and take another look at it to get a better perspective. Sometimes when you're zoomed in for some time, you can lose perspective and then you get to cleaning a lot more than you actually need to. But we're just gonna focus on cleaning up some of these textures. There we go. And for this particular photo, let's see. Okay, I think we're good. So that's the textures layer. Now I want to go to the colors layer, and I want to clean up these colors. There's something that we need to understand first. So I'm going to pull up my lasso tool by pressing L, or you can right click here if it's showing one of these and choose the lasso tool. We're going to add a blur specifically to certain areas. And so I'm going to start with the forehead here. So I'm going to select this area here. I'm going to select this area. And then we're going to add Gaussian blur. But there's something I want to show you first. So I'm going to go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian blur. And then what I want to do is I'm going to turn this all the way up. And I'm going to click OK. Now you can see it's feathered here, right? It's not a solid line, and that's because we've got our feathering set to 20 pixels. If we didn't have our feathering turned on, right? If we turned our feathering down to 1 and we did the same thing, I'm gonna go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian blur. You can see that it's now a hard line, right? And we don't want that. So we want to make sure that whenever we do Gaussian blur with the lasso tool, that we change our feathering to 20 pixels. So I'm going to undo that. I got 20 pixels here. We're going to get Filter, and I'm going to go to Blur. And obviously we're not going to do 1000. We're going to turn this up until we have the softness of the skin and the colors to something that we like. Not too much, not too little. About 15 I think looks good here. I'm going to click OK. It looks like that was a little too much. Let's go back. Let's Control Z. Go back to Blur. Gaussian blur, I'm probably going to do about 8, about 9.8. See what it looks like. I think that looks good. I'm going to go here. And then as you can see, if I hit Filter, Gaussian blur is the first because it's the last one we used. It'll actually automatically apply that to that area. Right? I'm going to go here. I'm going to do the same thing. Filter, Gaussian blur. You can also use that hotkey, Alt Control F, right? If we hit Filter, you see Alt Control F, you can use that as well. But I'm just gonna smoothen out some of this, Alt Control F, Alt Control F. I just wanna get the skin colors smoother so it blends a little better, Alt Control F. And as you can see, we've still got the texture intact here. You can see the the pores in the skin, the natural skin, but then the actual texture is still there, which is great. And in this particular photo, the face is really prominent in the photo, but also the skin on the leg is too. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to go over here to my lasso tool, Alt Control F, Alt Control F, Alt Control F, Alt Control F, and just smooth out some of that skin. There we go, and there you have it. We got some really smooth skin here. And so for the last thing I'm gonna do, I actually wanna clean up this little area right here and this little stray hair here. Now I love the way this hair looks, but this one is just a little distracting, right? So I'm going back to the textures layer. I'm getting my clone stamp tool out. I'm just gonna sample here, kind of work some of this in. Yeah, there we go. Now let's get rid of this hair. Still in the textures layer, right? We want to keep the colors intact. I'm going to sample here, right above, and just follow that same track till I get to about there. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more here. Do the same thing, sample here. And what's awesome is with the clone stamp tool, as I run across, it should follow that same texture line, right? So I'm going to sample here. Start here and just run that thing up. And then be really detailed here. And then last, about there. And I think that looks good. But there you have it. That's how you use frequency separation to get really smooth photos. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If it was helpful, make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one. Thanks so much for watching.